What is going on, everybody? I would like to welcome you back to episode 5 of the Fessin podcast, where we are talking all things episodes 6 and 7 of Challenge All Stars. And I got my co host and my producer with me, Michael LaRose. Give it up for Michael one time. Nelson, give it up for Michael one time.
There we go. There we go.
All right, with no further ado, I'm gonna just kick it off to you, Michael. You got all the questions locked and
All right.
loaded. Let's start this shit up.
Say less. Let's get it. So we pick up, like you said, episode 6, and it basically starts right after the elimination of last episode. That's where Leroy and Brandon had went into elimination, Mission Improbable. Leroy went and got a star. Picks up right after that elimination. They're talking about Kara, and how Kara's worried about Cam coming for her star, and obviously they've been butting heads this last couple episodes. So that's her biggest worry, is losing her star to Cam, and she's going to do everything she can make sure that doesn't happen. They touch base a little bit on Ryan and his aimless sobriety. Shout out to you, Ryan. Congratulations on that. And basically how he's just here to, just reinvent himself, get back in the game, find the love of life again. And it was just really strong to hear, And
That was episode 7 or 6?
that was 6, the beginning of 6. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So, just him basically talking about coming back into, or no, that was 7. Sorry. Yeah, that was 7. You're right. But yeah, basically, all right. So then let's get into the daily, because there's really
Episode 6 daily.
yes, episode 6 daily. There's really not much else going on in the beginning.
What was the daily?
It's called Take a Seat. That was the one in the big stadium.
Okay.
Just to break it down, if you guys hadn't watched it yet, in the stadium, TJ's calling out specific seats. For every pair, there's going to be one seat not there for a member of the pair. If you're not one of the players sitting, you get eliminated. You're now out of the running of the challenge. It's 2 parts. That's part 1. So they all go up in the pairs, and TJ announces the seats. They all slowly, individually get eliminated till there's 4 left. Those 4 get a 30-second advantage. Now for you, I got a question. Doing these part 1, part 2 dailies, and you seeing how hard these people are working, like you made a point while we watched the episode. These bleachers and these stairs are probably taking a lot out of these people, right? Now, how pointless or very important would you think that this part 1 is? Now, 30 seconds, I guess, like, it's going to help no matter what you're doing. But do you look at it as like, man, I'm doing all this work for 30 seconds? Or, all right, bet I could really use these 30 seconds in something like, I would say a puzzle, but I guess just a running competition at the end of the day,
Well, a lot of times on the challenge, like, you don't know what the advantage is going to be. They're like, if you're in the losing group, you'll find out your disadvantage when the time comes. Then you heard them all say, oh, 30 seconds, that's not that bad.
Right.
And then you find out it comes to like puzzle or balancing the thing and finding the token.
Right.
And there's a lot of chance involved. So you're not completely out of the running, right? But like I said, those bleachers, when we were watching the episode, I was like, bro, that running bleachers is fucking hell, bro.
Right.
Like, even for athletes, like, and you're in your prime in college, like 21 years old, that shit sucks. So I can only imagine, like, bro, I'm 32 years old and my knees be hurting. I can only imagine these OG all-stars running up them bleachers.
Right.
Like, you could run on a treadmill, go do some squats in the gym, but that shit is not running up bleachers, bro.
Right.
Like, that shit is, especially you all scared and scarce, like thinking like what seat number do I gotta go to and shit.
Scatterbrain.
Your adrenaline's rushing, like I already know your heart pumping, so I already know they were tired.
Right. I mean, that's how Keefla ended up hurting himself. He ended up pulling his hamstring trying to sprint up these stairs. And I mean, like 50 plus years old, that's not expected, but it's much more likely than the dudes in their 30s or late 20s. You know what I mean? So it's like, this can be tiring. This can be damaging. So that's what basically like triggers my questions. Like, just how important was this first round?
Yeah, I don't think we heard, who was it? Was it Flora say, like, who was it? Some team said they were like, we weren't even in the top heat. We had a 30-second penalty, and I think it was maybe Steve.
It was Steve. Yep, Steve
said,
and Veronica. Yeah,
Steve was like, we weren't even in. We had a disadvantage 30-second time penalty, and we still got in the run, and I think they were in the middle group, right? Or they weren't in the winning group, right?
Yeah, no. So they ended up, actually, no, they were in the losing group, unfortunately. But it was the part 2. So it was when they were going to find the tokens.
They had found the token before everybody
exactly.
else.
They started beating people who got the 30-second advantage in finding the token. So, like I said, realistically, like, did it need to be sacrificed? Did you need to go as hard in this first
No, but
round?
correct me if I'm wrong. TJ didn't tell them right before they did
Right.
the challenge, like, hey, if you're in the bottom of the pack, you're gonna have X, Y, and Z as a disadvantage.
Right.
He didn't say that. So
Nope.
like you heard Laurel's expression when he said you got a 30-second time penalty. She was like, oh, that's it.
Yeah.
And it's like that's what makes the challenge so hard is you don't know how to pace yourself in some of these challenges. You're
Right.
just shooting in the dark, going 100 miles an hour, and then like back to your point about Kifla is like he said his hamstring was given out. It's like he probably, not saying he's out of shape, he probably trained his ass off for the show, was on the treadmill running miles, but thing is when you're on the show your brain's moving at 1,000,000 miles an hour. You're going past your body's limits.
Yeah.
So you're gonna get, something's gonna happen. Like no matter how old you are, like your body's not used to that life or death mentality. And if you're doing the challenge well and you're really going to compete, you're gonna treat it like it's life or death. Like
Right.
when TJ blows that horn, you're a competitor, you're giving it everything you got to get that win.
Yeah.
And sometimes your body's not used to that. No matter how hard you train, it's hard to train for the challenge.
Right. Especially with so many different possibilities on things you're showing up to do. But you can't condition your body to be ready to hang from a rope 30 feet above the water or running up bleachers. Like you just never really know. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense because can't train for these things you don't know about, you know? So actually to bring it back to Laurel. Laurel was paired up with Brad this challenge, and on paper, you look at the two on a team on a pair, and you're like, oh, this is the favorite of the episode, the daily. What do you think is going wrong with Brad here? Have you ever seen someone be so touted as one of the best guys and just fall so short time and time and time again? I don't know if it's him not being able to do it because All Stars 3 showed out. Best competitor there by far. But then now you see him and he just can't get it together. Ever since the first challenge that he won, he just can't seem to figure it out. So what do you think's happening? Is it a mental thing? Do you think that he's losing a step? How do you look at it from the outside looking in?
I mean, from the outside looking in, obviously you look at Brad and he looks like a physical specimen. You're like, dude, shredded. He's in the best shape as anybody there, right?
Right.
But as we see time and time again, as these challenge seasons progress, they're leaning more and more towards critical thinking, puzzles, thinking on the fly, these weird type, balance beam type stuff, to where it's not favoring the meathead type dudes who, are winning in pole wrestle and hall brawl. But if you can't balance on a balance beam or sit there and take a deep breath and think of what 12 times 12 is, you're going to struggle on the challenge nowadays, right? And I think in this instance, in this daily we saw in All Stars 4 where they're running up the bleachers, you take a team like Brad and Laurel where when you have partnerships, you usually have one leader and one follower, right? And most of the times it's usually the male competitor, and you're hoping, your fellow female competitor can keep up with the pace and you got a good runner. And like, sometimes it's the opposite where the female is doing the puzzles and, the guy is picking up the brute strength. But in this particular duo, Brad and Laurel, you're like, all right, well, Brad's the muscle. And even though Laurel's the muscle, she's essentially the brain. She's going to handle the strategy in this. And Brad's just going to be a soldier and do what needs to be done.
Right.
And he's going to do it great.
Be the workhorse.
And he's going to do it great, right?
Yeah.
Better than anybody else. But Laurel's going to tell him which way to go and he's going to do it, right? But I don't think Laurel could really do that in this particular daily because it was cardio based. So we saw a lot of the guys took out in front and started sprinting. So I don't know, from the outside looking in, it looked like Laurel was depending on Brad because he was in great physical shape to run faster than everybody.
Right.
But then he had to figure out where the row ended and where it started. So maybe that was a little hard for him. I don't know. I didn't sit there and watch like to the T, but maybe that had something to do with it where it's not a checkpoint base where, Laurel and Brad could sit there and think and Laurel can, use her brain for it, where it was a straight sprint out the gate and, she's relying on Brad and, maybe Brad is just, he's not built for the checkpoints and the critical thinking part. You just got to put him in front of a pole and tell him
go.
Yeah, I don't know.
And that's the thing too, is like looking back at they were the first eliminated actually, now thinking about it. They had a whole row and one empty seat in the middle. So all he had to do was run to the middle and sit down. But I think it's like you said, his critical thinking, and he's on a go mode and just like get there, get there, get there. That he's just so scatterbrained that he's not thinking like, oh, this is a wide open seat. It's like, where are the ends? Where does it stop? Where am I supposed to go? So he's not thinking like strategically. He's thinking of just go mode. Where I don't know. It's just hard to see someone who is I put him in my top 3 when we first did the draft. This is like, yeah, I'd say he's one of the best guys, if not the best guy. So it's just hard to see him now perform just not to his level, you know? It's tough.
I think it just goes to show you, like what I said before, the challenge is kind of adapting into more equalizers, puzzle based stuff, critical thinking, to where, like I said, yeah, it pays to be a dog and be a physical specimen. It's going to help you out in the game. But if your game don't come with those other parts, critical thinking, math, puzzles, stuff like that, you're going to have a hard time. And
Right.
when I saw, like, for the second or third straight episode, Brad having a hard time, man, it makes you think, like, well, damn, if the most in shape dude and on the challenge is having a hard time, like, it could happen to anybody.
Right.
I was looking at you like, damn, this shit could happen to me. Like, I could go on and shit the bed too. And I'm like, nah, bro, because, like,
If you guys want to see more of the Fessin Up podcast, head over to the link in my bio and subscribe to the Patreon for more.